Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. Now, the newest episode of The Mandalorian, Chapter 15, came out the other day, but before I review that, let me first address the elephant in the room. The announcements made at the 2020 Disney Investors presentation involving new Star Wars material. The new Star Wars TV shows and movies announced at that event are shaping up to change the franchise forever, and not even half of them got trailers, but the ones that did get trailers look incredible, especially the new Bad Batch TV show. That show's trailer absolutely blew me away. Like, I'm at loss for words. That trailer was so good. Like, I'm just at loss for words. Like, I love the moment in that trailer when, like, it shows, like, Palpatine, like, giving his speech about the rise of the Empire on, like, a hologram being broadcasted to all the clones. That was so cool. And, like, it's gonna be so cool to see the Bad Batch fighting, like, alongside the Empire before they inevitably turn good and join the rebellion or whatever. But, because they're obviously gonna do that. But, like, it's gonna be so cool for, like, the single episode we see them working with the Empire. Because, yeah, I just think that it's gonna be so cool to see them, like, execute Order 66. I don't know if they're gonna do that, but, like, if they show them executing Order 66, like, at the beginning of the series, that would be so cool. And yeah, like they might work with the Empire for, like a couple episodes in the series, and I would love to see that. But then, like I said, the Bad Batch will eventually join the rebellion or something, because that's what everyone does, right? Like, Finn did it, Iden Versio from Battlefront 2 did it. Like, if you're in the Empire and also a main character, you're not gonna be in the Empire for long. Like, the Bad Batch is eventually gonna leave, which is gonna be disappointing, but, you know, the series is shaping up to be pretty good overall, so I'm excited. And that new Cassian Andor show got a trailer. I don't even know if you could call it a trailer. It was more just like the people who made the show talking about the show. And you know, that show is shaping up to be pretty cool too, even though we didn't get to see any actual footage from the show. We got to see some concept art at the end of the trailer, you know, the concept art for the show, and, you know, that concept art looks pretty cool. And then, of course, that other show, Rogue Squadron, got a trailer, but that show's trailer was more like the Cassian Andor trailer, where it was just somebody talking about the show, and we didn't actually get to see any footage. Yeah, Rogue Squadron show, I'm not quite sure how I feel about it, because unlike the Cassian Andor show, I don't really know what it's going to be about, because the Cassian Andor show is obviously going to be about Cassian Andor from Rogue One, but, like, Rogue Squadron show, yeah, it's going to be about Rogue Squadron, but, like, who in Rogue Squadron? Like, yeah, Rogue Squadron I know nothing about, and the trailer didn't really tell me anything, but, you know, I'm hyped nonetheless. It's probably gonna be a pretty good series. And then, of course, there are a lot of shows that didn't get trailers, but those shows look honestly the best. Like, the Ahsoka show, that show didn't get a trailer, but, like, it still has me even more hyped for that show than, like, all the other shows that got a trailer combined. Like, the Ahsoka show, just by knowing that there is going to be an Ahsoka show, has me, like, the most hyped for it. Yeah, I mean, that's all there really is to say. I'm super hyped for it. I'm not gonna really talk about that show that much, because I've already ranted enough about how much I think Ahsoka is a cool character. So, yeah, you guys already know I think Ahsoka is a really cool character, so obviously I'm hyped for the show. But yeah, enough about that show. And then, of course, there's the Obi-Wan show, which got announced, and we already knew that show was coming out, but it's still nice to get some official news on it. Also, I heard that Hayden Christensen might be in that show. So, like, that just adds to the hype, you know, like, Hayden Christensen is honestly, like, kind of, like, underrated. Like, he got, like, a little too much backlash from how he portrayed Anakin in the prequels, so, you know, I am so happy he's gonna get a second chance to be in Star Wars, and, you know, I'm honestly really excited to see what he's gonna do with the role. And obviously, Ewan McGregor is gonna play Obi-Wan, which is so cool. Ewan McGregor is, like, the perfect actor in my opinion, so it's nice for him to have his, like, own show now. That's obviously gonna be epic. And then, of course, there's the Acolyte series, which got announced, and no one really knows what that series is going to be about, but I personally think it's gonna focus around Darth Bane, and I'll make a full video about that after I finish my reviews of The Mandalorian. So yeah, you can expect that video to come out, you know, sometime after the season 2 of The Mandalorian ends, and I'll basically just be talking about what I think the Acolyte TV show will be about. And then, of course, there are a bunch of other TV shows and movies that got announced at that event, like the Lando series and the Droid Story series, but those are all pretty self-explanatory, and I don't really think there's anything to say about those until any more news about them gets released. So, I think I've already said everything that needs to be said, so let's just jump right into my review for the newest episode of The Mandalorian. As always, this video will contain spoilers for the newest episode of The Mandalorian, so for those of you who have not seen Chapter 15 of The Mandalorian yet, please do not continue watching this video. And for those of you who have seen the episode, enjoy the video. Now, this episode honestly surprised me because, unlike the last couple of episodes, this one didn't try to pull any, big twists or, bring any, iconic characters into the series. It just kind of told a fun little action story, and there's nothing wrong with that. It just was really out of the it just was really kind of out of nowhere, because this is the episode right before the finale. The finale is the next episode that's coming out, and after that, season 3 is the next season. So I was really expecting this episode to pack a bit more of a punch because, like I said, this is the episode right before the season finale. You would expect it, to set up for the finale. And I guess it did, but, it just didn't do it in the way I expected. And like I said, there's nothing wrong with that. It just kind of, it didn't, it surprised me at all. But don't get me wrong, this episode was still pretty good, and I think the opening scene is a perfect example of that. Nothing really happens in the opening scene. It's just Cara Dune trying to get Migs Mayfield onto Slave 1, but it's still a pretty entertaining scene. The dialogue is really good in it. I think that also goes for the rest of the episode. This episode has some, really entertaining dialogue. I think it was a really good idea to have Mando spend most of his time in this episode with Migs Mayfield because he delivers, a lot of really good dialogue, and, I personally found his, dialogue scenes to be the most entertaining parts about the episode. I really love when he, calls Mando out for, kind of breaking his rules, when he, takes off his Mandalorian helmet and puts a, Stormtrooper helmet on instead. He was really bending his, Mandalorian Creed rules there. And, later in the episode, he straight up, takes off his helmet all the way in front of, an entire group of people. He's, completely shattering his, Mandalorian Creed rules in this episode. And I really like how Migs Mayfield calls him out for that. And, yeah, like I said, it makes for a lot of really clever, dialogue, and, yeah, no, it's just a lot of really fun moments. And I really like the pacing in this episode because while it had a lot of dialogue, it had just the right amount of fight scenes to keep me engaged in what would happen next. My favorite fight scene was the one between Mando and the pirates on top of the transport because, first of all, it's a really cool fight scene, obviously, but also I really love how Mando is dressed up as a stormtrooper because to the regular pirates, they just see, a stormtrooper, a standard stormtrooper, beating up their, entire, crew. It's so funny when you think about it that way. To them, it's just a random stormtrooper completely, beating up all of their forces. I just think it's so funny when you, think about it from their perspective. And then, of course, I really like the end of the fight scene when the TIE fighters come down and, blow up, the pirate speeders or whatever and save Mando. That scene makes the, Empire look really good. And, I really like that. Because, in Star Wars, I always want, the Empire, because, obviously the Empire is bad and everything, but, I always want, that moment where, you can kind of see the Empire's perspective on everything, and feel oh, maybe they weren't so bad after all in their perspective, and you can kind of, understand why they think the way they do. So it was really cool to see a moment where the Empire were the heroes, and I really love the moment where all the stormtroopers are saluting Mando in the transport as they, drive into the base. That was so cool to, it really, made the stormtroopers seem like the heroes, they were, saluting Mando and his hard work and everything. That was a really awesome moment. Then, of course, it got thrown out the window when they introduced that, weird, creepy Imperial officer guy, and he talks about how, he's fine with letting his own forces die. That can kind of let me down, because, the episode, kind of set up the Empire to be, they weren't the good guys, but, the episode kind of showed, how the Empire wasn't bad from their perspective. But then it shows us this creepy Imperial officer guy talking like he's like a villain from a cartoon or something, and then it's like, oh, okay. It was kind of a letdown when they showed that, but you know, it still gave us some really interesting dialogue scenes. Yeah, no, this episode's strongest ability was how it wrote, like, dialogue scenes. I really love listening to the dialogue scenes in this episode. So yeah, even though the creepy, like, you know, Imperial officer guy, he was kind of like, yeah, he kind of made the Empire, like, go back to their evil roots, and I was like, oh, great. But, you know, it still gave us a pretty epic dialogue scene, and you know, the Empire was always evil. They were never good, and it was still disappointing, you know, when the series went back to seeing the Empire as the bad guys. I was still happy though when we got that one moment where we finally see how the Empire, like, you know, how the Empire maybe wasn't so bad after all. Then of course they kind of throw all that out the window, but you know, it's fine, whatever. And then, you know, then we get a pretty epic fight scene to kind of close off the whole episode. So yeah, then after we meet the Imperial officer guy, Migs Mayfield shoots him, and of course that leads to the entire Imperial base getting mad. So, then Mando, who doesn't have his helmet on in this sequence, like I think he eventually puts it on, but like, no, when he's talking to the Imperial officer guy, he does not have his helmet on. And, you know, just a side tangent here, I really like how this episode, like, expanded on Mando's, like, moral code, kind of, and, like, what he's, like, willing to do to break his own rules, I guess. But yeah, and then eventually he puts his helmet back on, and then, you know, the fight scene ensues, and, you know, Mando and Migs eventually escape the building. Then Mayfield blows up the entire Imperial base with one single sniper shot, and then TIE fighters chase them. And the best moment in the entire episode ensues right after the TIE fighters start chasing them. Boba Fett, who is piloting Slave One, he drops a seismic charge on the TIE fighters, and then of course the explosion ensues and they blow up in the most incredible explosion ever. I personally love the type of bomb Boba dropped on the TIE fighters, because, like, they were first introduced in Attack of the Clones, and ever since I saw them, I was, like, actually blown away. They're so cool. The way they blow up, where it's like the normal blue explosion, or not normal, but like a blue explosion, and then, like, shockwave blue. It's so cool to, like, just look at that, and I love how everything goes silent when the first explosion goes off, and then of course everything goes deafeningly loud when, like, the shockwave, blue, like, shockwave goes off. So yeah, no, I love those bombs, and it was nice to see that little bit of fan service in there where Boba Fett takes out the two TIE fighters with the seismic charge, and yeah, no, they blow up the TIE fighters, and even though Migs Mayfield is a prisoner, Cara Dune lets him go free, which is, you know, nice touch to the episode. And yeah, no, that's basically the end of the episode. And, you know, end of the episode, next episode, season finale. Like, dude, I cannot wait for the season finale. Like, it is going to be in SM tier. It's going to be in Siege of Mandalore tier. I cannot wait. But that concludes everything I wanted to say about this episode. So, let's go over to the tier list. And I would rank this episode at A tier. Like, it was a pretty good episode. It was acceptable. It was an acceptable episode, which is what A stands for, acceptable. So it was an acceptable episode, but the reason I'm not putting it in I or SM tier is because it didn't have any, like, real, like, nothing really, like, that important happened in it. It was just a good filler episode. It was a filler episode. It was so obviously a filler episode, which is why it's in, like, you know, a relatively low tier. But it was a good filler episode, which is why it's not in, like, M or D tier. So since it was a filler episode, but still a good one, that's why it's in A tier. So yeah, I was honestly a little disappointed with this episode because, like I said at the beginning of the video, it was the episode, it is the episode right before the season finale. So you kind of expect, like, an absolute bomb of an episode, but, you know, we didn't really get that, but, you know, it was all around still a solid episode. Yeah, it was an A tier, acceptable episode, and yeah, I mean, it's an A tier episode, and I think that basically wraps up everything I wanted to say in this review. If you like this video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you next time.